I used to believe I was living the American dream. 4 years ago, I married Nicole, the woman I thought would be my partner for life. We met during our senior year at State University, where she was studying communications and I was finishing my computer science degree. She was beautiful, charming, and seemed to share my vision of building something meaningful together. After 3 years of dating, I proposed on the beach where we had our first real conversation about the future. She said yes with tears in her eyes, and I believed those tears were pure joy. Our wedding was perfect. Small, intimate, everything we both claimed to want. I landed a position as a senior network engineer at TechFlow Solutions 6 months later, pulling in a solid six-figure salary. Nicole never pursued her career after we married. "I want to focus on building our home," she'd say, her hand resting on my chest as we lay in bed. "I want to create the perfect foundation for when we have children." I was happy to provide for us both. I loved the idea of Nicole transforming our suburban house into a real home while I climbed the corporate ladder. We talked about kids constantly, how many we wanted, what we'd name them, which room would become the nursery. Soon, she'd always reply when I brought up actually trying, "When everything's perfect." Looking back now, I can see the signs I ignored with the dedication of a man in love. It started about 6 months ago. Nicole joined CrossFit Elite, this trendy gym across town that she'd never mentioned before. Suddenly, she was obsessed with fitness, spending 2 hours there every day. She bought new workout clothes, expensive, tight-fitting outfits that showed off curves she'd never seemed concerned with highlighting before. When I complimented her dedication, she'd just smile and say she wanted to look good for me. Then there was her phone. Nicole had always been casual about it, leaving it on counters, asking me to check her messages while she drove. But gradually, it was always face down, always in her purse, always requiring a password I didn't know. When I asked about the sudden privacy, she laughed it off. "Identity theft is everywhere, Jake," she replied dismissively. "I'm just being careful." The lingerie appeared next. Beautiful, expensive pieces I never saw her wear. When I asked about the black lace set I found in her drawer, she blushed and said she was building confidence and would surprise me soon. That surprise never came. Instead, our intimacy began dying a slow death. Headaches became frequent. She was always too tired, too stressed, too distracted. Our conversations grew hollow. I'd ask about her day, and she'd give vague responses about errands and workouts. She'd ask about mine with the mechanical interest of someone fulfilling an obligation. We were living parallel lives under the same roof, and I told myself it was just a rough patch. Marriage had those, right? Everyone said so. The truth shattered my world on a Tuesday evening in October. Nicole was in the shower when I walked past our bedroom and saw her laptop open on the bed. She must have forgotten to close it in her rush to wash off the gym. I wasn't snooping. I was just walking by when the message notification popped up on the screen. The preview was small, but large enough to destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. "Gary, can't wait to feel you again, baby. Thursday at the usual spot." Face blowing a kiss. My stomach dropped like an elevator with severed cables. The message preview showed a contact photo, a muscular guy with dark hair and an arrogant smile. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, the shower still running, Nicole humming some song I didn't recognize. My hands moved without conscious thought. I pulled out my phone and screenshot the message, making sure to capture everything. The contact name, the photo, the timestamp showing 7:43 p.m. on a night when Nicole had supposedly been at book club. I closed the laptop and walked downstairs on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. That night, lying next to my wife in our bed, I stared at the ceiling and realized I was sharing my life with a stranger. The woman breathing softly beside me, the woman I'd trusted completely, had been living a secret life. She'd been intimate with another man, planning meetings, calling him baby, using the pet name she used to reserve for me. I didn't sleep. I didn't confront her. Instead, something cold and calculating settled into my chest where love used to live. I was going to find out everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every detail of what she'd done to our marriage. And then I was going to make sure both Nicole and this Gary understood exactly what it cost to destroy a man's life. The perfect lie was over. Now it was time for perfect retribution. I became a different man overnight. Methodical, patient, invisible in my own home. 20 years of computer expertise gave me advantages Nicole never considered. While she slept, I installed network monitoring software that would make the NSA proud. Every device connected to our Wi-Fi was now under my surveillance. Her phone, laptop, tablet, I could see every website, every app, every message, every location. The digital footprint of her betrayal would be mine to examine. The first discovery came within hours. Nicole's phone showed regular location pings at the Sunset Motor Inn every Thursday afternoon, the same day she claimed to have yoga classes across town. Cross-referencing with her text messages revealed the ugly truth. She'd been meeting Gary at this seedy motel for 5 months, paying for rooms with the credit card I provided for her personal expenses. I was literally funding my own humiliation. Finding Gary Foster took 15 minutes of social media detective work. Personal trainer at CrossFit Elite, 28 years old, covered in tattoos and dripping with the kind of arrogance that attracts insecure married women. His Instagram was a monument to narcissism, shirtless gym selfies, motivational quotes about taking what you want, and dozens of comments from women whose marriages were apparently as meaningless as my own. The man my wife was risking everything for was a walking cliché. Reading their messages made me physically sick. 5 months of explicit conversations that revealed not just physical betrayal, but emotional cruelty that cut deeper than the affair itself. Nicole mocked me in these texts, calling me boring and too focused on work. She told Gary how much better he was than me, how alive he made her feel, how she was only staying married for financial security while she figured out her exit strategy. "My husband works constantly," she'd written to him. "He's like a roommate who pays all the bills. You make me feel like a woman again." Gary's responses were even worse. He bragged about seeing another man's wife in his own house and called me a clueless beta who deserved what was happening. They had inside jokes about my work schedule, my habits, my complete obliviousness to their affair. I was comic relief in their twisted love story. The house surveillance confirmed my worst fears. Hidden cameras disguised as phone chargers revealed that Gary had been in our home at least a dozen times over the past 5 months. They'd used our bed, our shower, our kitchen. He'd eaten food I'd bought while planning their next meeting. The footage was devastating. Watching your wife with another man in your own bedroom creates a rage that has no name. But I didn't break. I archived everything. Multiple cloud storage accounts, encrypted drives, printed copies in a safety deposit box. I documented their financial infidelity too, gifts Nicole bought Gary with our joint account, 2 occasions where she'd helped with his rent, expensive cologne and supplements she claimed were for a friend. Hundreds of dollars of my money spent on the man destroying my marriage. The divorce attorney I consulted was impressed by my thoroughness. "In 30 years of practice, I've never seen documentation this comprehensive," she said during our consultation. "Our state's adultery laws would work in my favor, especially with video evidence and financial records." Nicole's lack of income and employment history, combined with proof of the affair, meant I could avoid alimony and keep the majority of our assets. For 3 weeks, I played the perfect husband. I kissed her goodbye every morning, knowing she'd be texting Gary before I reached the end of our street. I asked about her yoga classes while knowing she was planning her next betrayal. I even suggested we start trying for a baby, a comment that made her squirm with discomfort, since pregnancy would complicate her double life. "Let's think about it a little more," she replied nervously, unable to meet my eyes. All the while, I was planning something she'd never see coming. The legal divorce was just the beginning. Nicole and Gary had built their affair on the assumption that I was too weak, too trusting, too civilized to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The investigation phase was complete. Now came the reckoning. The plan that formed in my mind was elegant in its brutality. I would give them exactly what they thought they wanted, then watch their fantasy world collapse under the weight of reality. I spent days crafting the perfect approach. It had to seem genuine, unexpected, and too good for Nicole to refuse. On a Thursday evening, deliberately chosen because I knew she'd spent the afternoon with Gary, I sat her down for what she thought would be another boring conversation about our relationship. "Nicole, I need to talk to you about something important," I began, watching her face carefully. She tensed, probably wondering if I'd discovered something. "I've been thinking about us, about how we've grown distant lately, and I want to try something different." Her relief was visible. "What do you mean?" she asked. Cautiously. I took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for a difficult confession. "I think we should consider opening our marriage." The shock on her face was perfect. Her mouth actually fell open. "What?" she gasped. "I've been doing research, reading about couples who have successfully navigated this," I explained carefully. The idea of exploring outside our marriage with complete honesty and communication might be exactly what we need to rediscover our connection. I watched her process this, seeing the wheels turn as she realized what this could mean for her situation with Gary. "Jake, are you serious?" she stammered. "This isn't some kind of test." I shook my head, leaning forward earnestly. "I've thought about this for weeks. We're both young, we married early, and maybe we need to explore who we are individually before we can be our best selves together. But I want complete transparency, no secrets, no hiding. If we're going to do this, we do it with honesty and respect for each other." Nicole's excitement was poorly concealed behind a mask of caution. I don't know what to say," she replied slowly. "This is so unexpected. The key would be communication," I continued, laying the trap. "We'd need to meet each other's partners, establish boundaries together, make sure everyone involved understands and consents to the arrangement. I think meeting and talking through everything like adults is the only way this could work." Over the next few days, Nicole transformed. The woman who'd been distant and distracted suddenly became affectionate, attentive, almost giddy. She touched me more, smiled more, even initiated intimacy for the first time in months. She was energized by the prospect of legitimizing her affair, of having her cake and eating it too. I suggested she invite her friend over for dinner so we could all discuss boundaries and expectations like mature adults. Nicole hesitated. This wasn't exactly how she'd envisioned her fantasy playing out, but eventually agreed. Through the network monitoring, I watched her text Gary that night. "Jake wants to meet you," she wrote to him. "He's serious about opening our marriage. Can you come to dinner Friday night?" Gary's initial response was skeptical, then excited, then arrogantly triumphant. "No way, your husband wants to watch me with you? This beta male wants to meet me. This is perfect, baby. I've always wanted that." The arrogance sealed his fate. While Nicole planned our dinner party, I was making preparations of my own. I contacted 3 friends, Dom, Eric, and Travis, men I'd known since college who'd watched me build my life with Nicole. When I showed them the evidence, their reaction was immediate and uniform, disgust at what Nicole had done and complete willingness to help me deliver consequences. Dom had been a linebacker in college and still carried himself like one. Eric worked construction and had the build to match. Travis was a Marine veteran who'd done 2 tours overseas. They understood betrayal, they understood loyalty, and they understood that some situations required direct action rather than legal proceedings. The legal groundwork was already complete. Divorce papers were filed but not yet served. Our bank accounts had been reorganized to protect assets I'd earned. My attorney was standing by. HR at my company was prepared for me to take emergency leave if necessary. Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth, as if the universe was cooperating with my plan. I rearranged the living room furniture slightly, ensuring clear sightlines and optimal positioning for the hidden cameras I'd installed. Everything was recorded now, insurance against any claims of assault or property damage. Nicole spent the day preparing, showering, choosing the perfect outfit for her big night. She was practically glowing with excitement about finally having her affair legitimized. She had no idea she was about to attend her own funeral. Friday evening arrived like a perfectly choreographed nightmare. Nicole had spent hours getting ready, choosing a dress that walked the line between elegant and provocative. She was nervous but excited, checking her appearance in the hallway mirror every few minutes. I sat in the living room wearing jeans and a casual button-down, nursing a beer and projecting an image of relaxed confidence I didn't feel. Inside, my heart was hammering with anticipation. The doorbell rang at 7:03 p.m. Nicole answered, and Gary Foster walked into my home with the swagger of a man who thought he'd already won. He was exactly what I'd expected, tall, muscular, wearing joggers, and a fitted shirt that showcased the physique my wife apparently preferred to mine. His handshake was firm, his smile condescending, his eyes holding the smug satisfaction of someone who believed he was about to humiliate me in my own living room. "Jake, right?" he said with false friendliness. "Nicole's told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope." I replied, gesturing for him to sit. "Beer." He accepted, settling onto my couch with the casual entitlement of someone who'd been in my house many times before. Nicole sat between us, her hands clasped nervously but her face bright with anticipation. This was her moment, the fantasy of having both men accept her arrangement, of never having to choose or face consequences. I began the conversation exactly as I'd rehearsed. "Gary, I appreciate you coming tonight," I said calmly. I know this situation is unconventional, but I believe mature adults can discuss anything if they approach it with honesty and respect. Gary leaned back, that familiar smirk playing across his face. Hey, I respect that you're open-minded enough to even consider this, he replied with barely concealed mockery. Most guys would lose their minds if they knew their wife had connections outside the marriage. The word connections dripped with calculated disrespect. Nicole shot him a warning look, but he was too confident to care. I think communication is key, I continued, my voice measured and calm. Full transparency about expectations, boundaries, what everyone wants from this arrangement. Gary's confidence grew with every word. It's refreshing to meet a husband who isn't threatened by his wife's needs, he said, each word designed to undermine me while appearing respectful. Your generation is really becoming more progressive about these things. Nicole visibly relaxed as the conversation seemed to progress smoothly. She actually smiled at me, reaching over to squeeze my hand in a gesture of gratitude. This was going better than she'd dared hope. Then I leaned forward, set down my beer, and let the mask drop completely. Actually, Gary, there's something I need to clarify here, I said, my tone shifting to ice cold. I lied. There is no open marriage. What there is, however, is 5 months of video footage of you with my wife in my bed, explicit text messages between you two mocking me, and financial records showing Nicole spending my money on your rent and gifts. The transformation was instantaneous. Gary's smirk vanished. Nicole's face went white, her hand jerking away from mine as if I'd burst into flames. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. You thought I was some pathetic beta male, I continued, my voice growing harder. Some beta you could humiliate while I paid for the privilege. You've been calling me that in your texts for months, haven't you, Gary? He started to stand, his posture shifting from arrogant to defensive. Look, man, I don't want any trouble, he began desperately. Too late for that, I answered coldly. As if summoned by my words, the front door opened and Dom, Eric, and Travis walked in. They weren't trying to hide their intentions. Gary's eyes darted between them, finally understanding that this wasn't a civilized conversation anymore. He tried to back toward the patio door, but Eric stepped sideways, cutting off his escape route. Nicole screamed, jumping to her feet. Jake, what are you doing? She shrieked. This is insane. Sit down and stay quiet, Travis said firmly, gently but forcibly guiding her back to the couch. This doesn't concern you right now. What happened next was swift and brutal. Gary tried to fight. I'll give him that. He swung at Dom first, landing a glancing blow on his shoulder. But he was outnumbered and outmatched by men who had real-world experience with violence, not just gym posturing. Dom's return punch was precise and devastating, a right hook that sent Gary to one knee. Eric followed with body shots while Travis controlled his arms. I watched from across the room, arms crossed, monitoring to ensure it stayed focused but effective. This wasn't about killing him, it was about education. They targeted his ribs and legs primarily, places that would hurt intensely and heal slowly without causing permanent disability. His nose broke when he tried to lunge at me, blood spattering across my hardwood floor. The sound of his groans mixed with Nicole's hysterical sobbing created a symphony of consequences. After roughly 2 minutes, an eternity when you're on the receiving end, I called it off. Gary was curled on my floor, bleeding, whimpering, completely stripped of the arrogance he'd worn like cologne. I crouched beside him, speaking quietly so only he could hear. You ever come near my wife again, ever contact her, ever even think about her, and what just happened will look like a gentle massage, I whispered. You're going to leave this town, and you're going to remember that some men don't play games when it comes to their families. Eric and Travis dragged him to the front door and literally threw him onto my lawn. Gary crawled to his car and drove off, probably to an emergency room, definitely out of our lives forever. Now it was just Nicole and me. She was sobbing, makeup ruined, demanding to know how I could do such a thing, how I could hurt so. Mion she loved. The word loved hit me like a slap, but I didn't react. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her the video folder, footage of her and Gary in our bedroom, screenshots of their texts, bank statements highlighting her financial betrayal. You did this, I said quietly. Every choice that led to this moment was yours. You brought him into my home. You spent my money on him. You disrespected everything we built together, and you thought I'd just take it. Her attempts at apologies, explanations, and pleas fell on deaf ears. I handed her the divorce papers I'd been carrying in my jacket pocket. You have 48 hours to get out of this house, I informed her coldly. The divorce is already filed. You'll get nothing. I have enough evidence to bury you in court. Your family, our friends, everyone is going to know exactly what you did and what it cost you. I walked upstairs and locked myself in the guest room, leaving her sobbing in the living room where her fantasy had died a violent death. Through the walls, I could hear her making phone calls, probably to her mother, probably trying to spin this as domestic violence rather than consequences for adultery. It didn't matter. The evidence spoke for itself, and the truth was about to become very public. The next morning I woke to silence. Nicole was gone. She'd taken some clothes, her toiletries, and the jewelry her parents had given her, but left everything else. The house felt different, lighter somehow, as if a toxic presence had been extracted. I made coffee in the kitchen where she'd once planned meals with Gary and felt nothing but relief. First phone call came at 8:47 a.m. Nicole's mother, Sandra, screaming into my voicemail about what a monster I was, threatening to call the police, demanding I take Nicole back and work this out like adults. I called her back and calmly explained that I had video evidence of Nicole's affair, financial records of her spending our money on her lover, and documentation of 5 months of systematic betrayal. The screaming stopped abruptly, replaced by stunned silence, then a dial tone. The divorce proceedings moved faster than most because my documentation was ironclad. Nicole's attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Martinez, tried every angle she could find. She argued for alimony based on Nicole's lack of work history, claiming her client had sacrificed career opportunities for the marriage. She requested half the house value, citing Nicole's contributions as a homemaker. She even attempted to paint me as financially controlling for monitoring our accounts. My attorney demolished each argument methodically. The videos and text messages proved not only adultery but financial infidelity, Nicole using marital funds for an affair. The timestamps showed she'd been deceiving me while I worked to provide for our future. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, was visibly disgusted by the evidence. "Mrs. Thompson," she said sternly during the final hearing, "you were unfaithful to your marriage, dishonest about your activities, and misappropriated marital funds for an extramarital affair. This court sees no justification for awarding you alimony or significant asset division." Nicole left our 4-year marriage with her personal belongings, a used Honda Civic that had been in her name, and approximately $3,000 from her personal checking account. No alimony, no house, no ongoing financial support. She was 29 years old with no work history, no savings, and no safety net except her parents. Through mutual friends, I learned about her new reality with a satisfaction that probably made me a terrible person, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Nicole moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town, the kind of place she'd once wrinkled her nose at when we drove past. The monthly rent was more than she'd ever paid for anything in her adult life, funded by her parents' reluctant support and a job as a cashier at Target. The work was apparently humiliating for someone who'd spent 4 years as a kept woman, standing for 8-hour shifts, dealing with demanding customers, earning $9 an hour while living paycheck to paycheck. Her social media went dark after former friends began commenting on her posts with pointed questions about her sudden life changes. Gary's fate was even grimmer. The beating left him with 2 cracked ribs, a broken nose requiring surgery, and ligament damage in his right knee that ended his personal training career. More devastating was the complete destruction of his reputation in our relatively small fitness community. Word spread quickly about the married client incident. Gyms started refusing to hire him, and his existing clients dropped him en masse. I heard through a friend at CrossFit Elite that Gary moved back to his parents' house in Ohio within 6 weeks, his Instagram account deleted, his local connections severed. The knee injury required months of physical therapy and left him with a permanent limp that made demonstrating exercises impossible. His career as a fitness influencer died with his physical capabilities. For me, the aftermath was more complicated. Some people, especially the men who knew the full story, quietly respected what I'd done. They saw it as justified defense of marriage and masculinity in a world that often punishes men for fighting back. Others, particularly women in our social circle, viewed me as dangerous and controlling. I lost some friendships, but realized they weren't really friendships if people would side with an adulterous wife after seeing clear evidence of her betrayal. My family supported me completely. My mother, initially horrified by the violence, changed her tune after I showed her the videos and financial records. "You did what you had to do," she said after reviewing the evidence. My father told me he was proud of me for standing up for myself, though he warned me to be careful going forward. "You did what needed doing," he said seriously, "but make sure this doesn't follow you." Legally, I was in the clear. Gary never pressed charges. Doing so would require testifying about the affair and subjecting himself to cross-examination about his role in destroying my marriage. His injuries, while real, weren't severe enough to guarantee prosecution for assault, especially given the provocation and adultery context. Financially, I was better off than I'd been in years. Without Nicole's spending and with no alimony obligation, I had substantial disposable income for the first time since our wedding. I increased my retirement contributions, started a vacation fund, and began investing more aggressively. But the emotional cost was real. I struggled to trust anyone romantically, viewing every woman through the lens of potential betrayal. I had nightmares about finding Nicole with Gary, waking up angry and alone in the bed we'd once shared. I started therapy, not because I felt guilty about my actions, but because I needed to process the betrayal without letting it consume my future. 6 months after the confrontation, I was still single, still angry, but no longer drowning. The guest room had become my home office. The master bedroom had new everything: furniture, paint, carpet, even the windows. I couldn't stand any reminders of what had happened there. I wasn't happy yet, but I was free, and sometimes freedom was enough. 11 months later, I sit in my living room on a quiet Sunday evening, nursing a glass of whiskey and watching snow fall outside windows that Nicole will never see again. The house is completely mine now, every room renovated or rearranged, every memory of our marriage systematically erased and replaced. My phone buzzes with a text from my college buddy Mike, asking if I want to join him for a ski trip to Colorado next month. I text back, yes, without hesitation. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to commit to anything social. Now, slowly, I'm rebuilding a life that belongs entirely to me. I don't regret what I did to Nicole and Gary. Some people would call it excessive, even monstrous. I call it necessary. They made a calculated decision to betray me, to mock me, to use my money and my home for their affair, betting that I was too weak or too civilized to do anything meaningful about it. They were wrong. I'm not naive enough to pretend I'm a hero. The violence crossed legal lines, and I took risks that could have destroyed my career and landed me in prison. But I also know that the alternative, a traditional divorce where Nicole got rewarded for adultery with alimony and asset division, would have been a different kind of injustice. Sometimes the only way to teach people about consequences is to deliver them personally. The legal system would have given Nicole a settlement and Gary would have walked away unscathed, probably already targeting his next married client. Instead, she works retail and lives in poverty she created through her own choices. He left town with injuries that will remind him forever what happens when you disrespect another man's marriage. And me? I'm free. Truly, completely free. I won't pretend dating is easy now. I'm cautious, maybe too cautious, analyzing every woman's words and actions for signs of deception. I may never remarry. The idea of trusting someone with that level of access to my life feels impossible right now. But that's a choice I get to make on my own terms, not because someone trapped me with lies and manipulation. Tomorrow I have a meeting about a promotion to senior systems architect. Next month, that Colorado ski trip. Next year, maybe a house in the mountains where no one knows my story. My life belongs to me again. I don't believe in karma or cosmic justice. I believe in action. When it mattered most, I took action instead of accepting betrayal. I chose consequences over victimhood, justice over forgiveness. I finish my whiskey, turn off the lights, and head upstairs to a bedroom that has never known another man's presence. In the morning, I'll wake up in a life that's entirely my own, built on the ashes of a marriage that was never real in the first place. That has to be enough, and for now it is. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.